Our government has made a great effort in trying to rehabilitate the hostels and restructure them into family units. And this can be witnessed in some of already between the City of Johannesburg and some of the hostels in other areas. So there has been an effort. And also the current focus announcement by the provincial government of the budget to refurbish the hostels is also very welcomed. But the issues are not just the maintenance of the hostels, it's actually the human capital, the actual residents who are in the hostels who lacks capacity. The will is that we wish to begin a plan to reskill the hostel dwellers and align their skills into the new economy, into the current opportunities. And that is giving them a serious challenge because everybody is looking at the hostel dwellers as people who must just seek employment. But we're also looking further into enterprising of the hostels, where the hostels can now set up their entities, particularly the indunas that are there, because remember, there are two types of induna. The other induna is the one in the rural areas. The one in the rural areas are paid by government, are maintained by government, and the ones in the hostel that work 24 hours, when someone is stabbed, someone got killed, someone got shot, they don't get paid a cent. So the plan now is to say, how do we enterprise the hostels? How do we then reskill and upskill the hostel dwellers and the hostel residents? Because the dwellers are those people who just come and chill around the hostels, and the residents are people who live in the hostels. So yes, they are family.
So then let's start with that. Who are those who are occupying the hostels at the moment? It's in the hostel dwellers, as you say. I mean the residents, not the dwellers, because as we mentioned that in apartheid they were created for particularly migrant workers. It was all men, housing facilities. So what are the demographics like at the moment? And has this new plan of refurbishing accommodated all of this, including sanitation, etc., the infrastructure around it?
Yeah, you do see a lot of improvements in the hostel. Obviously, the hostels are very vast. You know, you're talking about in the hostel in the Johannesburg alone, you're talking about 45 hostels with a population of 157,000 people and 200. And in KwaZulu-Natal, you're talking about a small number of 25,000. Yeah. So there are effort. You know. It's just that the main issue here is that when the hostel dwellers at the end of the day go home, they won't take these beautiful fix-up buildings. And the fact that they are announcing the 300 million, this is where the challenge is. They are not saying, we know that in hostels, there are people who are entrepreneurs. We want to find them, we want to build them, and as we are going to be fixing and doing maintenance, we want the hostel dwellers companies to be the one also taking part, maybe working closely with other big companies, because there is that 30% that normally you will see the forum claiming, for localization, where the money should be, the focus should be going on the local people. So you then wonder that why that conversation is not there. We have currently begun a plan to interact with the Minister of Labour, Mr. Nxesi, to say that we want to really get on with it and embark on a serious campaign to train the hostel dwellers, indunas, into security personnel, into security owners, because we believe that through our plan of the hostel economy, we will be able to get the hostel to receive the right focus that they are not receiving. Everybody talks about township economy, everybody talks about the rural economy, but no one talks about hostel economy, because the hostels are not really the townships. It's just another form, like you said, that they were established for industrialization of this country. And one will expect that maybe sectors such as the mining sector will have maybe a place for them to accommodate these hostel dwellers whose legacy is that they build all the infrastructure that everybody sees and enjoy, you know.
Help us then understand the hostel ecosystem, including, as you say, the role of indunas, how it's different here in the urban areas to what happens in the rural areas, and how you can work together with government to better the lives of those who are here, to also continue to better the lives of those who are at home in the rural areas.
The two indunas are not doing the same job. You know, others that are in the tribal authority courts, you know, they relax there and then they do cases, and some of them, they also deal with the placing of people. You know, if you're looking for a land, you know, in some places, they know they'll make you pay some money for the land, which is sometimes not even allowed to be done. And then you find that the hostel indunas don't sleep. Someone gets shot in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock. Sometimes induna themselves. We've been burying indunas. There was a time where every month there was an induna shot, you know, and because this is a challenge of the government, why they found it hard to recognize the indunas in the hostels, because hostels locations are not rural locations. So most of the government programs, they are based in the back home in the rural. But at the end of the day, government also have turned a blind eye to remember that these people who came and built all the infrastructure that we have, surely there must be some kind of conscience where we can feel we owe them to help them get back and reincorporate them into the mainstream economy. Because as things stand, they are just walking South Africa pass by. They are not part of South Africa. They are living in South Africa. They wake up in South Africa. And if you're looking at the current crisis now, the infrastructure sabotage, the sabotaging of Transnet infrastructure. You know, Transnet's capacity, you know, the RBTC has got a capacity of 91 million tons to produce coal and make the economy stronger for the country. But Transnet is struggling with constant sabotaging of their infrastructure. And some of this sabotaging is a result of the lack of stakeholdership. There is no link between the other world. South Africa has become like Brazil. There is the rich and the poor. And 13 companies dominating the economy there, dominating the economy, leaving nothing. I know that there was something like 4 million tons set aside for some government SOC as a way of recognizing. But there is a role that they can play in looking after the government infrastructure, which is actually now a big barrier between us and the economic growth. We haven't seen any economic growth in a long time, solely because there are no right players that are on board and people are excluded.
The current living conditions of hostel dwellers, I mean, we've heard about power outages, which is a problem throughout the country, but is it far worse off, particularly in some of these areas, especially where there hasn't been any refurbishment, lack of sanitation? We hear of no running water. But some of the complaints have been that of hostel dwellers that they don't even have access for land or to land to build homes for their children. Can we talk a little bit more about some of these challenges?
Yeah, those challenges are there. Those challenges are there, which is why for me, I don't really want to dwell so much on those. Those are your usual maintenance problem that you'll find anywhere. You know, hostels places are places of people. People also, they break their own infrastructure, but there isn't much focus on the hostels in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of when there's load shedding. In hostels, it goes for a day or even 2 days. It's unlike where you will experience your 2 to 6 hours. So these are the challenges. The hostels dwellers have learned to live around them. Like I say that for me, the main thing is that how do we make sure that the hostel dwellers generation, they are the last generation to be experiencing the difficulties that they are experiencing in the hostels, and which is why I'm calling for cooperation between the private sector whom their security budget that they have spent on their security companies is really struggling, because without the relationship with the society, there is a broken connection between the two. This is where we are. Because in the beginning, there was a lot of complaint regarding this maintenance and all this that is not done. But once you sit down and think about it, is that when the hostel dwellers go home, can they take these fresh buildings that they're going to be done? What do they give to their kids at home? Because remember, every citizen of the hostel is a rural resident. They've got a home somewhere in the rural. And the only reason they come to the hostel is because they came because to strategically exploit the opportunities. Before, in the apartheid days, was a gold rush. So everybody went to hostel. They got something. They built local homes. They made their kettles, crawl, big. So there was that prosperity. Suddenly, everything, under the new dispensation, when people were celebrating this whole new democracy. So the challenge now that lies ahead is that how do we now incorporate and do reskilling and make sure that there is upskilling of the people in hostels, and make sure that the hostels are seen as an economic hub where there could be small manufacturing taking place, small distribution of product taking place. We've got as a country ALGOA for America, right? ALGOA is a very, very, very good opportunity that through this bilateral government does. But if you think about it, can people in the hostel enjoy such things? Because they are not producing nothing, they are not manufacturing nothing. So we need to get the hostel dwellers not just fix their homes. We need to fix their brains and make sure that they get to enjoy South Africa, because right now there is no difference between someone who lives in a hostel and someone who's coming from Zimbabwe. And sometimes the Zimbabwean, when they come here, they move higher to the ladder. And these things over a long time, they create this crisis where there's now a disaster, people are looting. And I've been here, we've been talking about what causes these things. It's because there's a consistent neglect of these communities. You cannot neglect 157,000 people. That's a very high number. And with the capacity that the government has, we're praying that the government is able to say, let's prioritize, let's get the youth in the hostel trained in call center jobs, let's get the mothers trained in all these things.